In Peru, Indian indigenous movements will carry out a second takeover of Lima to demand resignation of President Dina Boluarte. In the United States, authorities registered a new train derailment in Manatee County, Florida, involving a freight train carrying propane. Nigeria's two main opposition parties called for the cancellation of the presidential elections, alleging manipulation of results. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. On Tuesday, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador responded to the questioning of his electoral reform by U.S. State Department. During his morning conference to the nation, the Mexican president referred to the statements made by the State Department, headed by Antony Blinken, who criticized the Mexican government for its electoral reform and assured that the United States supports independent electoral institutions. In this regard, the president assured that there is more democracy in Mexico than in the United States, since in the Latin American nation people are in charge. López Obrador also called on U.S. officials to stop acting in a meddlesome manner, and if they wish to continue with this policy, they should take care of what is happening in Peru. Brazilian President Luis Ignacio da Silva reinstalled the National Council for Food and Nutritional Security, CONSEA, in a ceremony at the Planalto Palace in Brasilia. The event was attended by ministers, authorities, and representatives of civil society who celebrate the return of the body, an important institutional space for participation and social control in public policies on food and nutrition security. The CONSEA was created in 1993 by President Itamar Franco, revoked 2 years later and replaced by the Comunidad de Solidaridad program under Fernando Enrique Cardoso. In 2003, Lula re-established it, beginning a period of intense social participation in the construction of policies in the area of food security. However, in 2019, Jair Bolsonaro deactivated CONSEA in one of his first official acts, an action considered as one of those responsible for returning Brazil to the hunger map. On Tuesday, the former president of Uruguay, José Mujica, travels to Brazil to present a proposal for Latin American integration to the Brazilian president, Luis Ignacio da Silva. As confirmed to La Diaria by former Uruguayan Vice President Mujica's wife, Lucia Topolansky, the intention is also to meet with Brazilian social movements such as the Landless Movement and trade union organizations. The initiative defended by Mujica seeks to promote regional cooperation in order to achieve a future Latin American integration. After months of work, the proposal has been reflected in a document entitled El Relato, dated February 13th, which includes a South American historical reinterpretation on the projects for the future, such as sharing a flag or having a common anthem. According to the former Uruguayan president, the great barrier to regional integration is administrative and not ideological. The Parliamentary Commission that analyzes corruption cases within the Ecuadorian government recommended to impeach President Guillermo Lasso. The 221-page draft report prepared by the President of the Commission, Viviana Veloz, will be evaluated and presented this Wednesday in Parliament at 8 a.m. local time to be debated by legislators. The document declares that Lasso's conduct was in accordance with paragraphs 1 and 2 of Article 129 of the Constitution, related to crimes against security and public administration. Both cases are punished with censure and dismissal. The text also states that the political trial is a democratic and constitutional way to serve as a protection mechanism for citizens against the arbitrary actions of power and its rulers. In Peru, Indian indigenous movements carried out on Tuesday a second takeover of Lima to demand the resignation of President Dina Boluarte. Indigenous Aymara and Quechua people from the combative South Indian region of Puno arrived to the Peruvian capital to demand the resignation of President Dina Boluarte. The delegation from the 13 provinces of the South Indian region of Puno achieved the highest participation in the popular demonstrations that started in December. The Boluarte's administration recognized that the announced marches are a constitutional right, but they point out that violent acts are being carried out with the objective of destabilizing the government's action. Despite the government arguments, a survey indicated that 58% of those consulted identified themselves with the protests, and 55% believe that the mobilizations will achieve the electoral advance. Human rights organizations claim that at least 26 Peruvian citizens will be held as political prisoners. They point out that one of these cases involves 6 leaders of the Ayacucho People's Defense Front accused of terrorism without evidence. From Cajamarca, our comrade Jaime Herrera with more details.
Pero no podrán callar su corazón.
Yesenia Alania is the sister of one of the leaders in the Ayacucho People's Defense Front, FTS. She had to abandon her town, family and work to live in Lima, where she searches for legal and social help to free her sister and the rest of the leaders, who have been sentenced to 1.5 years of preventive prison by the judicial power.
It is clearly a political persecution of all those who have a critical position, a democratic and progressive position in Peru. They are the ones who are being persecuted, criminalized, and stigmatized. They are facing totally arbitrary and illegal detentions and trials.
The families of the 6 detainees in Ayacucho say that they do not only have to face justice and government persecution, but also a smear campaign.
The press has abusively presented them using terms like terrorists. This stigma denigrates our families.
According to the public ministry, the following pieces of evidence frame FTS leaders as part of a terrorist organization, having Marxist books in their possession, demanding the installation of a constituent assembly, and presiding over an organization allegedly linked to terrorism.
It is undoubtedly a political persecution. All over the country, leaders are being subjected to this dictatorial measure. We, the people, do not know how to react right now.
According to the National Human Rights Coordinator, to date, at least 26 Peruvian citizens are in preventive detention, accused of promoting or financing violent protests during the last 2 months. One of them is a teacher found with the equivalent of $500 and a notebook with the names of her colleagues who had come from Cusco to protest in Lima.
They have not committed any crime. They have been detained for activities they openly carried out. They were never clandestine. Authorities detained and imprisoned them because they decided to participate in political life, to organize the population and to channel their demands. This is the definition for political prisoners.
For human rights defenders, the Peruvian government increasingly resembles a dictatorship. It has conducted arbitrary arrests and imprisonments. It has allowed police and military repression to cause more than 60 dead and some 2,000 wounded. Furthermore, it has expressly forbidden protests in Lima's central squares.
Jaime Herrera, teleSUR, Perú.
Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account of teleSUR English, in which you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. In the United States, a new train derailment has occurred involving a freight train carrying propane in Manatee County, Florida. Authorities have responded to the emergency derailment. 4 cars carrying gypsum and a tanker truck carrying nearly 115,000 liters of propane overturned. Officials ordered the evacuation of the affected area to begin unloading the fuel. They also said that no leaks or injuries have been reported so far. This will be the 7th accident involving chemical materials recorded in the United States in the last month alone. On Tuesday, students and activists gathered outside the United States Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. as the 9th Justice hearing a plan to provide student debt relief. The U.S. Supreme Court on Tuesday heard arguments on a proposal to eliminate nearly $400 billion in student debt. The court's ruling, expected before June 30th, will decide whether millions of U.S. citizens will see up to $20,000 in debt disappear. Under the relief plan, $10,000 will be cut from loans owed by people earning less than $125,000 a year. For students who went to college on need-based government assistance known as Pell Grants, the relief would be $20,000. The White House have pointed out that nearly 43 million U.S. citizens have $1.6 trillion in federal student loans.
I'm a daughter of Brazilian immigrants, and so I don't come from generational wealth. And so I had to take out student loans in order to go to university. And so I have about $30,000 of student loan debt, and through Biden's cancellation plan, I will have 2/3 of my debt canceled. And so for me, that's a lot of relief.
That's right. So here in the United States, women hold the majority of student debt. And when you really get into that, black women hold the highest student debt burden of any other group in this country. And when you look at states like California, where we have Latina women who hold the bulk of student debt. So when we think about the people who work the hardest to get their college education, they enter the workforce and make less money than their peers. We also owe the most money for our education.
On Tuesday, the Russian President Vladimir Putin signed the law stipulating the suspension of Moscow's participation in the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, also known as START-3 or New START. The treaty was signed by Russia and the U.S. in Prague on April 8, 2010, and was extended without preconditions for 5 years in February 2021. Under the agreement, the parties committed to reduce their nuclear forces to 700 carriers, 1,550 nuclear warheads, and 800 launchers. The president stressed that Russia is not leaving the START-3 treaty, but suspending its participation in it, stressing that Moscow is ready to conduct nuclear weapons tests, but will not be the first to do so. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and his Azerbaijani counterpart Yehun Bayramov criticized the deployment of an expanded European Union monitoring mission to Armenia's volatile border with Azerbaijan.
We see how the European Union is openly abusing its relations with Armenia and Azerbaijan, including pushing through its so-called mission on the territory of Armenia, raising serious doubts regarding its legitimacy. It raises many questions, including in terms of its function, mandate, duration, and the added value that this mission can bring to efforts to normalize relations between Azerbaijan and Armenia.
This mission was temporary, for 2 months specifically, and had two goals. Firstly, the strengthening of a confidence-building measure between the two countries, and was also supposed to contribute to the process of delimitation. Unfortunately, both the first and second functions did not achieve their result. We have not seen any effective steps in this direction. Moreover, we have seen that Armenia's position at normalization talks with Baku has become more destructive after the European Union mission had been set up.
In Moldova, demonstrations were reported against the government of President Maya Sandu and the rising cost of basic services. The protest was announced by deputies from the SOES party after they published their demand that the Moldovan government pay the people's gas and electricity bills for the 3 winter months. Despite the efforts of the Moldovan police to prevent the march, demonstrators advanced towards the center of the capital. This new wave of mobilizations also calls for the resignation of the current president. They accuse him of maintaining a pro-Western policy that could provoke an escalation of the conflict in Transnistria. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko arrived in China on Tuesday on an official 3-day state visit to strengthen bilateral relations with Beijing. President Lukashenko was received by First Deputy Foreign Minister Ma Xiaoshu and diplomats of both countries. The Belarus president is scheduled to meet with his counterpart Xi Jinping. Both leaders will take the opportunity to strengthen friendship relations, promote large-scale joint projects, evaluate the response to international challenges, and boost trade cooperation. teleSUR English continues to grow. You can now tune in from 33 different African countries through StarSat, dial 461, and enjoy our Latin American alternative broadcast. One final short break, and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. On Tuesday, Nigeria's two main opposition parties called for the cancellation of the weekend presidential elections, alleging manipulation of results and demanding a new ballot. The early vote counting from Saturday's election shows that the Progressive Congress Party candidate Bola Tinubu is ahead of PDP's Atiku Abubakar and the Labour Party's Peter Obi. The voting process was mostly peaceful, but many polling stations opened very late. Moreover, delays and technical problems disrupted the uploading of tallies from local polling stations to a central website. The country's election overseer, the Independent National Electoral Commission, said that the problems were technical glitches, but opposition says that the failures in the system allow manipulation and disparities in the results.
It's already very glaring to all Nigerians, except we are making pretenses about it here, that this election is not free, fair, and credible. It's clear to all Nigerians that this election is already compromised, and therefore, if that is the wishes and aspirations of every Nigerian and is the general opinion, the best thing to do is for us to correct it and get it right by jettisoning what has been done and have it done properly.
Because definitely this is not a credible election, and it's not acceptable after 20-something years of our democracy to have this type of retrogressive step which Professor Yakubu has taken Nigeria. It is dangerous, and we have to take necessary steps, because we don't also want Nigerians to erupt into taking the law in their hands. We, the representatives of the people whom they have voted for our parties, will have a responsibility to do something.
Nigerians on the streets were also worried about the results of the presidential elections. Many in the electoral authorities of hiding the true results, others calling for new elections.
People are not happy in the street. Now see how people are shouting. People is not happy. A lot of people, youth. This is the reason why we are still calm, because of we want to know the end. But if things happen today and tomorrow, if there is nothing like final result, what people will see, they will not like.
You can see the whole things happening now in Nigeria. You all see like what's happening in Nigeria. You can see now in Delta State now, protests are going on in INEC office and the rest. So you can see the thing shows that there's an issue. There's an issue in Nigeria. It's an issue in Nigeria. So for me, the election should be cancelled.
I agreed to cancel the result because they did so much bad on it. The result they give us is so bad. Yeah, and it's not the original result.
Our original result.
So let them give us our original result. So this they are giving us is not original result.
On Monday, Algeria and Russia discussed strengthening their military cooperation during the visit to Algiers by Russian Security Council Secretary Nikolai Patrushev. The Russian official, accompanied by a large delegation, discussed with Algerian Army Chief of Staff Said Shangrias the state of military cooperation between the two armies and ways to strengthen it. Shangrias said that for Algeria, the visit is an expression of the firm and frank willingness of the two countries to further strengthen their strategic and historic partnership. The Russian official also met with the Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune, who will be visiting Russia in May. Moscow is a major supplier of weapons to Algeria, which is the largest country in Africa. In South Africa, a number of companies in several key sectors are preparing for a possible total collapse of the power grid, where a state of national disaster was declared on February 9th to resolve the country's severe power crisis. According to local media, mobile telecommunications company MTN has deployed more than 2,000 generators to counter further load shedding and has set up command rooms to ensure that critical sites remain operational and that the Johannesburg Stock Exchange has enough diesel to operate for 7 days. Although the South African Reserve Bank said a widespread failure of the national grid is unlikely, it admitted that it is working with the financial sector and other industries to prepare for such a hypothetical scenario. We have come to the end of this news briefing. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.